The woman appeared at Samuel's door like smoke from a dying fire, silent, fragile, carrying the weight of something that made her shoulders curve inward. Rain dripped from the brim of her hat, pooling on the weathered planks of his porch. Her left arm was cradled against her chest, wrapped tight in what looked like strips of faded calico, bound with leather cord that had been tied and retied until the knots resembled desperate prayers. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely cutting through the storm. "I need shelter." Samuel stepped back, lantern light catching the hollow spaces beneath her eyes. She was maybe 25, maybe older, the kind of worn that came from surviving things that shouldn't be survived. Her clothes hung loose, travel-stained, but her boots were good leather, not a drifter then, someone who'd had something once. "Come in." He didn't ask questions. "Not yet." She moved past him with careful steps, favoring her right leg. The smell that followed her wasn't just rain and trail dust. There was something else underneath, something metallic and wrong that made his stomach tighten. The cabin's warmth seemed to pain her. She stood near the door, water dripping from her coat, clutching that wrapped arm like it held her last breath. Samuel set the lantern on the table, its glow throwing long shadows across the room. The fire in the hearth had burned low, embers pulsing like a slow heartbeat. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair by the fire. "You're hurt." She shook her head, too quick, too frightened. "I just need to rest, until morning." But when she tried to move toward the chair, her legs buckled. Samuel caught her elbow, gently, the way he'd steady a spooked mare, and felt her whole body go rigid at the touch. "Easy," he murmured. "Easy now." Up close he could see the fever shine in her eyes, the way her breathing came shallow and fast. Whatever was wrapped around her arm was seeping through the cloth, dark stains that spoke of infection, of time running out. "That needs tending," he said. "No." The word came out sharp as broken glass. Her good hand moved protectively over the wrappings. "Don't touch it, please." The lantern flickered, casting their shadows against the wall like two people caught in a dance they didn't know the steps to. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley, and Samuel felt something shift in the air between them, a recognition maybe, or the first whisper of understanding that this night would change everything. She was running from more than the storm. "At least let me get you some coffee," Samuel said, moving to the stove. "Something warm." She nodded, sinking into the chair with a soft sound that might have been relief or pain. The firelight painted her face in shades of gold and shadow, and for a moment Samuel caught something familiar in the line of her jaw, the way she held her head. "What's your name?" he asked, keeping his voice gentle. "Does it matter?" He poured coffee into a tin cup, steam rising like incense. "Might." She took the cup with her good hand, wrapped her fingers around it like it was an anchor. Mary Keller." The name hit him like a fist to the chest. He'd known a Mary Keller once, a lifetime ago before the war, before everything went to hell, but that Mary would be older now, and this woman had the same green eyes, the same stubborn set to her mouth when she was afraid. "Where you from?" "Mary Keller." "Everywhere." "Nowhere." She sipped the coffee, winced. "You ask a lot of questions for a man offering shelter. And you're careful with answers for a woman who needs help." The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows. Mary's eyes darted toward the sound, then back to her wrapped arm. The stains on the cloth had spread wider, and Samuel could smell the infection now, sweet and rotten, the smell of flesh giving up. "That's going to kill you," he said quietly. "Maybe, probably." She looked at him then, really looked, and he saw something flicker in her expression. Surprise, maybe recognition. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone who'd turn me away." Samuel moved to the window, watched rain lash against the glass. 20 years he'd lived in this valley, 20 years of keeping to himself, minding his own business. But looking at her now, seeing the fever in her cheeks, and the way she held herself like something broken that was trying not to fall apart. "I won't turn you away," he said. "But I won't watch you die either." "Then don't watch." The coffee cup slipped from her fingers, hit the floor with a sharp crack. Mary's eyes rolled back, her body going limp in the chair. Samuel caught her before she could fall, felt the heat pouring off her skin like she was burning from the inside out. He laid her on his bed, her wrapped arm falling across her chest. The leather cord was old, worn smooth by handling. Whatever was underneath those bindings, she'd been carrying it for a long time. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the valley in stark black and white. Samuel stood over the bed, listening to Mary's labored breathing, weighing mercy against respect, healing against secrets. His hands moved to the cord. The knots came apart under his fingers like they'd been waiting to be undone. Mary stirred, consciousness flickering behind her eyelids, but the fever held her deep. Samuel unwound the cloth slowly, layer after layer of stained calico that told a story of pain and desperation. When the last strip fell away, the world tilted. It wasn't an arm underneath, not anymore. The limb had been severed just below the elbow, the wound old but poorly healed, infected tissue angry and swollen around crude stitching that looked like it had been done with whatever was at hand. But that wasn't what brought Samuel to his knees beside the bed. It was the bracelet, silver, tarnished with age, engraved with a pattern of roses he'd traced with his fingers 1,000 times. The bracelet he'd given to his daughter on her 16th birthday. The bracelet she'd been wearing the day she disappeared 10 years ago. The day the Comanche raiding party swept through the valley like wildfire, taking everything that mattered. "Anna," he whispered, the name falling from his lips like a prayer. Mary's eyes opened, focused on his face with effort. She saw the bracelet in his hands, saw the recognition in his eyes, and her face crumpled. "I told you not to untie it," she whispered. Samuel's hands shook as he set the bracelet on the bedside table. His daughter, his Anna. But this woman's face, the eyes he'd thought looked familiar. She wasn't Anna, she was someone else, someone who'd found his daughter's body, taken her jewelry. "Where did you get this?" His voice came out raw, broken. Mary struggled to sit up, pain and fever making her movements clumsy. "She gave it to me. She's dead." The words tasted like ash. "Anna's been dead for 10 years. No." Mary's good hand reached for the bracelet, fingers trembling. "She's not dead, Samuel, she's changed." Thunder crashed overhead, so close the cabin shook. Samuel stared at this woman who knew his name, who wore his daughter's bracelet, who spoke of her like she was still alive somewhere in the world. "The Comanche took her," Mary said, each word a struggle, "but she survived. She lived with them, became one of them. This," she gestured to her severed arm, "this happened when I tried to bring her home. She doesn't want to come home, Samuel. She's not your little girl anymore." The room spun around him. Outside, the storm raged with renewed fury, as if the sky itself was breaking apart. Samuel reached for the bracelet, held it up to the lamplight. The engraving was worn but still visible. "To Anna, with love, Papa." "Where is she?" he asked. Mary's eyes were closing again, fever pulling her under. "Close," she whispered. "She's been watching you, waiting." A sound cut through the storm, hoofbeats, fast and hard, coming up the valley road. Samuel moved to the window, saw shapes moving in the rain, riders approaching at a gallop. Mary's eyes snapped open. "They followed me." Samuel doused the lantern, plunging the cabin into darkness, except for the dying firelight. Through the window, he counted 6 riders, maybe 7, moving like shadows through the rain. They rode with the fluid grace of men who'd spent their lives in the saddle, and something about their approach made his skin crawl. "Who are they?" he whispered. Mary struggled to sit up, her face pale in the dim light. "Her brothers, the ones who adopted her." She cradled her severed arm against her chest. "They don't take kindly to people trying to steal their sister." The hoofbeats stopped outside. Samuel heard voices speaking in Comanche, low and urgent. One of them laughed, a sound like breaking bones. "Why did you come here?" Samuel asked. Mary's eyes found his in the darkness. "Because she asked me to. She wanted you to know she was alive. She wanted you to know she chose to stay." A fist pounded on the door, 3 sharp knocks that echoed through the cabin like gunshots. Samuel's hand moved to the rifle above the mantel, but Mary caught his wrist with her good hand. "Don't," she whispered. They'll burn this place down with us inside. Another voice called out, different from the others, softer, speaking English with just a trace of accent. Papa. Samuel's breath caught. The voice was older, changed, but underneath the years and the distance he heard something that made his chest tighten. The laugh that had echoed through this cabin, the voice that had called him Papa 1,000 mornings. Anna, open the door, Papa, please. Samuel looked at Mary, saw her nod slightly. His hands shook as he lifted the latch, pulled the door open. The woman standing on his porch was Anna, and not Anna. Her hair hung in long braids decorated with feathers and beads. Her face was painted with symbols he didn't recognize, and her clothes were buckskin and trade cloth. But her eyes, those were still his daughter's eyes, green as spring grass. Behind her, the riders sat their horses like statues, watching. Hello, Papa, she said quietly. Samuel's voice wouldn't come. 20 years of wondering, of hoping, of grieving, and here she stood, alive, grown, transformed into someone he'd never imagined. Mary told me you tried to bring her home, Anna said, glancing past him to where Mary sat on the bed. She lost her arm because of me, because I wouldn't come. Anna. Samuel finally found his voice. I looked for you, I never stopped looking. She stepped closer, and he saw the silver bracelet on her wrist, not the one Mary had been wearing, but another, identical. I know, but this is my home now, these are my people. Her hand reached out, touched his cheek with gentle fingers. I came to say goodbye, Papa, and to thank you for the woman you sent to find me. Dawn broke gray and quiet over the valley, the storm having passed in the hours before sunrise. Samuel sat at his kitchen table, turning the tarnished bracelet over in his hands while Mary slept, her fever finally broken. Anna had tended her arm with herbs and poultices that smelled of sage and something bitter, working with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd seen too much pain. She'll live, Anna had said, the infection's clearing. Now his daughter sat across from him, no longer the painted warrior from the night before, but not the little girl he remembered either. She'd washed the symbols from her face, let down her braids. In the morning light, he could see the woman she'd become, strong, scarred, free in a way he'd never taught her to be. Tell me, he said quietly, tell me about your life. Anna poured coffee into 2 cups, her movements graceful and sure. It's a good life, Papa, hard sometimes, but good. I have a husband, 2 children, boys who laugh like you used to. Samuel's chest tightened, grandchildren he'd never meet, a daughter-in-law whose face he'd never see. Are you happy? Most days. She smiled, and for a moment he saw the girl who used to climb apple trees behind the house. Are you? He looked around the cabin, clean, orderly, empty. 20 years of keeping everything exactly as it had been the day she disappeared, waiting for a ghost to come home. I'm learning to be. Anna reached across the table, took his hand. Her fingers were coal-used from different work than he'd taught her, but her touch was still gentle. Mary's good people, Papa. She came to me 3 times before I agreed to let her go, said you deserved to know I was alive. She lost her arm for it. She knew the price. She paid it anyway. Anna squeezed his hand. That's love, Papa, the kind that costs something. Through the window, Samuel could see the riders waiting at the edge of the clearing, patient as death, loyal as blood. I have to go, Anna said. I know. She stood, moved to the bed where Mary was stirring. From around her neck, she lifted a small leather pouch, pressed it into Mary's good hand. For the pain, she said softly, and for the dreams. Mary's eyes opened, focused on Anna's face. Thank you, Anna replied. Samuel walked her to the door, stood on the porch as she mounted her horse, a paint mare with kind eyes and scars on her flanks. The sun was climbing higher now, burning off the last of the storm clouds. Will I see you again? He asked. Anna looked down at him from horseback, her braids moving in the morning breeze. When you're ready to let me go, Papa, I'll come back. She wheeled her horse around, joined the riders at the edge of the clearing. Samuel watched them disappear into the trees, moving like spirits between the shadows and the light. Inside, Mary was sitting up, rolling the leather pouch between her fingers. "She's not coming back," she said. "No," Samuel agreed, "but she's not gone either." Years later, when the memories had settled into something like peace, Samuel would still feel Anna's presence in the morning light that came through his kitchen window. Mary stayed through the summer, her arm healing clean and strong. When she finally left, she took with her a letter, not for Anna, but for the grandsons Samuel would never meet, telling them about the grandfather who'd loved their mother enough to let her choose her own sky. The bracelet sat on his mantle, catching sunlight like a promise kept.